And out of those 19 in the top 5, 12 of them are ranking number 1 for their respective keywords. I'll let that sink in for a bit. So I wanted to make this very quick video on YouTube's click-through rate and why it's such a super important metric to take into consideration when trying to get exposure on YouTube. You know, things like ranking and getting suggested within YouTube. So while I'm mostly going to be focusing on click-through rate, I also want to show you a video that is ranking for 23 keywords on YouTube. And out of those 23 keywords, 19 of them are in the top 5. So 23 keywords in the top 10, 19 top 5. And out of those 19 in the top 5, 12 of them are ranking number 1 for their respective keywords. I'll let that sink in for a bit. Now I want you to also realize something else before I carry on. So many of these so-called experts on YouTube harp on about things like video retention and that it has to be super high and so forth. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that it's simply not true, and here's why. Let's have a look at the analytics of this particular video that ranks so well. Oh, and what's that? The retention is only 35%, not 50%, not 75%, and not even close to being 90%. One thing that is important though is the watch time, but again, you don't need massive retention to have a high watch time, but I digress. Let's look at something else while we're here, shall we? Over 80% of the traffic in this video is coming from search. Now keep that in mind as we go further down this YouTube CTR rabbit hole. Now click-through rates are important as it shows YouTube that whenever your video gets displayed, that people actually click on it. So let's use The Rock as an example. When he teamed up with Under Armour and Under Armour broke sales records, that was a pretty good indication that The Rock's merch was popular. So Under Armour then pushed their stuff more and more and more. It's a silly example, but you get the point. In other words, the more people that click on your video, the better it will perform. It's really as simple as that. Now before I show you the CTR of this particular video, let's look at how click-through rate is calculated. It's the total clicks on video divided by the total amount of impressions gives you the click-through rate. In this case, the video had 20,100 impressions that led to just over 3,000 views in a very short time, leaving us with a CTR of 15%. Now on a side note, half of all channels and videos on YouTube have an impression CTR that range between 2 and 10%. So now the $1 million question is, how do you increase your CTR? And I'll get to that a bit later, but before we talk about how to increase your CTR, let's first examine what influences CTR. Now when you first upload a video, this is what happens. Your subscribers watch your video first. This drives up CTR immediately. It's pretty obvious. And if you don't have many subs, being consistent and working with a sound strategy will get you there quicker. But more on that later. Secondly, and depending on how well you optimize your video, people may or may not find it in search. Now YouTube will then show your video to small groups of people that are A, similar to your subscribers, and B, similar to the people who found you through search. YouTube will then further sample your video with smaller groups of people before they start showing it to more and more people. Or on the flip side, less and less. It's the less and less part we don't like and we want to fix, obviously. So in short, the first 24 to 48 hours of your video's life is crucial. Lastly, and this one is super important, if your thumbnail sucks, people won't click your video, which in turn will drive down your CTR and ultimately your rankings. Now, I don't want you to jump to any conclusions too soon though. And what do I mean by that? Well, there are many instances where some of your videos may have lower CTR but more views. Does this mean though that I just contradicted myself? No, not exactly. The aim of the game with YouTube is to get views, and the more views your video gets, obviously the better. But that also translates to lower CTR in most cases. Oh, and of course suggested views also plays a part in this, but I'm digressing again. So let's have a look at an entirely different video. What you'll notice is that the CTR is only 10%, but oh, look at that, more views and longer watch time. Here's a side note again, if you haven't already figured it out, the more views you have, the longer your watch time generally is. The point I'm trying to get across here is that in order for you to get the best possible start, you need to make sure your CTR is good. No, great. If you missed it before, I'll say it again. Boosting your CTR as early as possible will set you up for success later down the line. True story. There's no getting around the fact that you need to do anything and everything you possibly can in 2019 to get noticed and stay ahead of the competition. Especially since 300 hours of video are uploaded to YouTube every single minute. Right, so here's how we increase our CTR. Number one, we work on increasing our subscribers by being consistent and putting out great content that people actually want to watch. Number two, do correct video optimizing. And this starts even before you upload your video. Number three, create super duper incredible thumbnails that make people want to click. Do those three things well, and you've already done more than half the people on YouTube. Now, if you want to learn how to rank your video on the top of YouTube, I have a completely free 10-part course on how to just do that. The best part is you keep your credit card in your wallet. I'll leave the link in the description below. Now, I hope this video helps to dispel some myths around video retention and so on, because I see too many people get stuck on that idea. Oh, and before I let you go, I highly recommend a piece of software called Morning Fame. It's incredible for keyword research and checking out the competition, especially if you're a new channel. Nico has done a really good job with this system, and I highly recommend you check it out. Now, unfortunately, you can't sign up without an invitation code, so I will leave an invitation code for you in the description below. And as always, subscribing helps me help you, and so help me help you. Stay awesome.